Hello there, this is Critical from Critical Media, just taking a look at the 2025 Legends Omnibus release of Star Wars The Rebellion, Volume 3, or more affectionately known as the cover suggests as the Shadows of the Empire Omnibus. And what we usually do at this channel is give you an idea of what to expect if you ever come across these books in the wild. So we go over the exterior, some bonus material, art and plot points, and then a brief review at the end. Now, as I kind of alluded earlier, yes, this is basically the Shadows of the Empire period of Star Wars. So this material in the book, it pretty much takes place just before Empire Strikes Back, all the way to Return of the Jedi. And what's also unique about this book is it actually contains material from, well, several publishers, actually. So not just Dark Horse this time, but even a little bit of Marvel, and also like Topps Magazine, since it does include those little comic books found within those Star Wars Insider or Star Wars Galaxy magazines. But anyways, I'm digressing. Let's get back to the nature of this channel, shall we? So in terms of the exterior, yes, or at least on the cover here, we have this awesome Hugh Fleming cover. There is also the variant that has like Leia and Chewie and their Bosk and, forgive me, I forget what Chewie's name goes by, but those bounty hunters basically. But personally, I think we were given the better cover with the retail release here. Awesome work. Almost gives off that Dave Dorman kind of feel to it. Now, in line with the other Rebellion titles, yes, it has the Star Wars blue text, just Volume 3, and it has another profile pic, again, from Shadows of the Empire. And as though I couldn't belabor the point more, yes, even on the exterior, it does remind folks, yes, it's basically the stories between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Although I will say, it does kind of start off just before Empire Strikes Back. But that's all just besides the point there. Underneath the dust jacket, though, we get this super awesome Tsuneo Sanda kind of cover. So it's a wraparound image, and it's basically the Star Wars trilogies up to that point. So the prequel and the classic trilogy put together, a set of characters and ships and all that. Awesome. So it's a very impressive spine design, I'll say that. I like how on the middle, it's Luke right down the middle, Leia. At least Han made it onto the cover. Han's my favorite, so I guess that kind of fits there. But super awesome to have it so well aligned. Man, Tsuneo Sanda gives off a lot of that Alex Ross kind of feel with that photorealistic style of his. But in terms of bonus material, so I'll admit, there's not much in terms of interviews or cover art. It really is predominantly cover art and a bit of sketch work. But it's who the artist is that's really being highlighted here that makes it special. So yeah, it does start off with the Rebel Heist covers by Matt Kindt. Matt Kindt did that story and he did it amazingly well. But yeah, I like how they all have a very familiar thematic approach to them, with exception to Luke's, of course. But pretty damn awesome. Yeah, those Chris Moeller covers, very sweet. He did them along with Hugh Fleming, so yeah, if it wasn't Hugh Fleming, as you're seeing right here, it was usually Chris Moeller. So pretty awesome in that light. I think there's like a Kelly Strom one. Yeah, Kelly Strom here. Oh yeah, that's right. That's because this is not so much a cover, but it's from one of those Star Wars Tales books there. Pretty awesome in that light. But pretty much the star of the show is coming up just now. Man, as you're seeing, awesome work, especially in the Star Wars Visionaries. Makes sense. But yes, here they come now. Again, Chris Moeller and Hugh Fleming. As I wasn't kidding when I said this is basically the Shadows of the Empire Omni. Yeah, here's that proper image of the hardback here. Very proper. But then comes probably the best part of it. And there's Tsuneo Sanda just finishing off there. The fact that they included these, and along with the following pages, these are actually Ralph McQuarrie's work. Yes, the same work that inspired what we eventually got in the films. So I severely find that these are like some of the best Star Wars bonus contents I've ever seen. Yes, you are getting a few others as well. Yeah, the Star Wars mangas and whatnot. But yeah, again, you're going right back to, again, Ralph McQuarrie's work. A lot of the work that shaped what Star Wars would become. Yeah, like early works or early designs of the AT-ATs and ATSTs and whatnot. Yes, the ATDPs and all that jazz. Super awesome that you were actually getting the real one-to-one creators' work here. It's very impressive. It is kind of combined, though, with the Star Wars film adaptation books as well. But still, super awesome that they even included this. The storyboarding even, it's very impressive. If you don't want to shell out the money for those Ralph McQuarrie books, to be honest, what Marvel collected here, it's very impressive. I have to admit, like, I big them up a lot for even including this. Because some folks don't want to spend $300 getting the original Ralph McQuarrie works. But now, to the art and plot points part of the video. You know what? Yes, we'll do the, I guess, table of contents, since this is kind of a unique one this time around. Because as I mentioned, this actually has not just Dark Horse material, which is the grand majority of this is Dark Horse material. But there are exceptions. But nonetheless, it does start off with material just before Empire Strikes Back. Then, like, yeah, just approaching Empire Strikes Back. Then it has the original Marvel Comics runs from the 80s of the film adaptation right here. Some proper and very fitting mapped Star Wars Tales books. The star of the show, which is Shadows of the Empire right here. Even the mini-comic, very much appreciative of that. Although the mini-comic is basically just a summary of the overall story. Then, yes, some more Star Wars Tales. Then we enter Return of the Jedi. Again, that was a Marvel Comics series. And again, you're getting a lot of just material, Star Wars Tales, Dark Horse material, before getting into the Star Wars Infinity series. So, Star Wars Infinities is basically like the Star Wars What If, essentially, in a nutshell. But yeah, just kicking things off, it does start off with Shadow Stalker and the character of Jixton here. Basically a Imperial double agent, so to speak, and very much a character of the 90s, like hyper muscular, if you ask me. A little too much, so it gets kind of off-putting, if you ask me. But that's just something in the 90s comics that was just going on at the time. But yeah, this one, it's very much its own independent, very, what's the word? Comprehensive story within its own right. Or should I say self-contained story. But yeah, as the narrative kind of hints, there's an Imperial defector. He's been sent out to actually stop him from joining the rebellion or whatever. But there's a little bit more going on. Admittedly, it's not the greatest story in the world, but it's still impressive, like the subject matter that does get covered. Now comes probably one of the final things that Dark Horse ever did before Disney took the rights back is Star Wars Rebel Heist. This is like, I swear the story came out just before like Force Awakens did. So yeah, this must have been like one of the final things that Dark Horse ever did. And yeah, Matt Kint did the story. I'd say the approach of the narrative, and as the name Rebel Heist kind of hints at, it has a lot of Ocean's 11 to it. Because there's an overall plan, there's an overall mission to complete, but there's a lot of like these small stories that lead to the overall goal. So yeah, the first story pretty much focuses on a rebel meeting the legend that is Han Solo and realizing, is it luck or is it just really, really well calculated buffoonery that's actually in truth a real genius at work. That's what I really like about this narrative. It actually shows you that, yeah, Han Solo, he's a lot smarter than he ever presents him as. Then, yes, there's this awesome narrative about this rebel spy. She's like trying to get out. She's trying to get evac'd because she's got her information, but something's gone wrong. So Leia comes in to kind of take her place and finish the mission. It's pretty awesome. It's an excellent story of somebody being humbled, realizing, oh, just because you're a princess doesn't mean you're soft. You're actually a gangster. You're actually a real, true believer. And that's what I love about that narrative. And then we have the Chewie series, which, again, highlights her heroism and the incredible loyalty that is Chewie. He's basically a superhero when you think about it, man. He's awesome. And that's kind of what you're getting from this Rebel Heist series, is that every major Star Wars hero gets their chance to shine in each issue. And I definitely appreciate that. And I like how it ultimately comes full circle. Like I mentioned, it does have a lot of that Ocean's 11 kind of feel, especially by the end of it. Very impressive work. Now comes an awesome story here. I forget it's something to do with like romance in the ice. But one thing I do recall is that this particular narrative, it's written by Judd Winnick, and it's basically the explanation of, or I shouldn't say the explanation, but just another example of the budding romance between Han and Leia. Again, they're not an item at this point, but they're still flirting. And it's an excellent story because if you ask me, it's one of those stories that really highlights Han Solo and how less selfless, I should say, he actually is. Like, he actually does care about other people way more than himself, as you truly learn in this story, as Leia also learns in this story. And you can't help but notice she's becoming more and more attracted to him, just as he's always been attracted to her, apparently. It's an awesome little narrative, I'll say that. Like, I'm very appreciative that they included this one. Very nice, fun-loving story. But now comes, yes, the adaptation of one of the films, Empire Strikes Back. So it's a good little cut point here. So this is from the original Marvel years of Star Wars from back in the 80s. So, yeah, you're going to kind of notice the saturated colors and whatnot. But, hey, it's still very anatomically correct. I guess they just really wanted to play it safe back then. And as usual with adaptations, it's a nice... it's always nice and fun to always look at an adaptation and see, what kind of perspective these creators had on the films that we loved, right? So sometimes you'll see different dialogue. You'll maybe see a different character's perspective of an event that happened in the film. And it's always kind of unique, especially when you're a Star Wars nerd like me. And you know the films like line by line. It's always nice when you can pick up like all these little small differences in them, Sometimes it's just a writer who didn't have access to the script, or sometimes it's just very intriguing the way they kind of flip it too. Yeah, like I said, even the way things play out is pretty clever. Like instead of, "I would be honored if you would join us," he actually says, "Boba Fett and I would be honored if you joined us." It's those weird little changes in dialogue that's always been impressive to me. But yeah, now comes the star of the show, Shadows of the Empire. So, yes, for anyone who recalls this story, it actually was like one of those multimedia things where there was a video game, there was the novel by Steve Perry, and then the comic that was adapted by John Wagner. Yeah, the same guy who worked on 2000 AD with Judge Dredd and Warrior and all that. In all honesty, I will say this. If you really like the Shadows of the Empire story, read the novel. Because the novel is the most comprehensive. Because the video game and the comic intentionally leave out other parts of the story while highlighting others. So it's almost like you can only get the full story if you enjoy all of them. But I'll be honest with you. The novel pretty much includes everything. The actual Steve Perry novel of Shadows of the Empire. But it doesn't stop this from being awesome. But yeah, Shadows of the Empire, for those of you who may not know, it literally picks up after Empire Strikes Back. Like Luke literally just got his hand and they're already under attack. Because apparently now there's a power play going on. We're being introduced to a new character, power monger in the form of Prince Shizor, the leader of the Black Sun, who feels his way to usurp Darth Vader's position. Basically, he wants to make Vader look bad and take his spot in the Emperor's eye. And how does he do that? He basically plots an assassination against Luke Skywalker, the Emperor's current prized possession. But yes, as the story plays out, you're getting the cunning of Shizor. Yeah, he does try to rationalize it pretty well. But at the same time, yeah, you do see some shortfalls. But in all honesty, I feel like the better parts of this narrative come from Boba Fett's journey from the events of course, Empire Strikes Back on Bespin to deliver Han Solo to Jabba. It ain't as easy as you think. Like, it starts off with that infamous fight between him and IG-88. Pretty much where IG-88's real claim to fame comes from, if you ask me. But man, really awesome that they handle it so well. Because in all honesty, you get more introductions to all the other bounty hunters far better in that narrative than most. Definitely loved it. Then the whole power play again with of course, Vader just trying to play with everybody or trying to get his own agents into Jabba's palace. It's, as I said, very convoluted at times, but very clever as well. And then, of course, we're introduced to Dash Rendar. Not even his real name, by the way. But still, it's interesting like how this character plays out and how useful he is in this narrative. I know he's more than just a plug for Han Solo. I mean, even though that's functionally what he is. He's basically the replacement of Han Solo. But there is a bit more to him than meets the eye. Nonetheless, I've always loved this particular narrative. It is very brief. And yes, Marvel themselves have tried to replace this narrative with Crimson Reign and hidden empire narratives. Personally, I still find that this is still the better story, even though Marvel did a fantastic job on their own with their current canon, but still. This will always have a special place in my heart because of how well they did the Boba Fett aspect of the narrative. As weird as it is, that's like one of the best parts of this story. And yes, even Shizor coming on to Leia, literally seducing her with some sort of pheromone or whatever. Very creepy kind of narrative going on there, but still. And yes, it does lead into one of my favorite images from my childhood, this final battle at the Skyhook. Many of you maybe recall playing in the video game. And that's what I'm kind of hinting at, is the real ending of the story. Doesn't ever really come across in the video game. Even if you play it on hard mode, that's not even the full real ending. But still, it's all besides the point. It's still damn entertaining throughout, and I even love the fact that it even included this mini comic in it too. Super awesome to have. But kind of like what I also mentioned, they use these Star Wars Tales stories in between. You know, some of them are horror stories, some of them are just very intriguing ideas, like what happens when your hyperdrive just dies while you're in mid-transit. You'd be surprised how much it really can affect your life and how much time you lose when situations like that happen. But still, very impressive that they even covered that material. Probably one of my favorite stories. It's not necessarily a Star Wars Tales story. It's this one here from Star Wars Visionaries. Essentially, Star Wars Visionaries, it was a series where it was actually created by people who worked on Star Wars themselves, like the special effects. And wouldn't you know it, they actually turned out to be great authors too. So this one in particular from Alex Jaeger. Yeah, he is paired up by a comic writer, Zachary Sherman, to, I guess, maybe adapt it properly. But what an awesome book. Basically, as you're kind of seeing, it's a story from the perspective of one of the soldiers on Hoth as they were leaving. Very impressive work, very striking, and very well thought out, if you ask me. It's basically a soldier just writing to his mother that, you know, this is why I joined the rebellion. This is what they got me doing for now. That kind of thing. But yeah, it's pretty grimy. Like, yeah, the rebels are doing some pretty harsh things. So are the Imperials. It's war after all, people. But I like how it interweaves itself with the events of the Battle of the Hoth. So yeah, you will see the Falcon leaving. You'll see that Vader was right there and the rebels that encountered him. Pretty damn awesome. I would turn the page, but then again, it reveals one of the most important aspects of this story. And because when you find out who this soldier's mother really is, it fits very well. Very awesome. And then, yes, it does kind of lead into the comic book adaptation of Return of the Jedi. So while these are excellent to have, as I kind of mentioned earlier, because they're such a product of their times, these are from Marvel back in the 80s, a lot of saturated color, still anatomically correct and still poignant, but those saturated colors sometimes unfortunately help you miss certain things, like the detailing on Jabba or the juxtaposition of Bosk and Chewie here. It's not the end of the world. It's just that there's a reason why, to me, the films are the gospel truth, no matter what, right? It's impressive as these are. But nonetheless, it does thankfully include these hilarious and very famous to Star Wars comic fans characters in Tag and Bink. Basically these fourth wall characters that somehow include themselves into the most important events of Star Wars, like stealing the shuttle Tidarium, ending up on Hoth, being the ones who shot 3PO and all that jazz. It's always been tongue-in-cheek, and that's something I always loved about the expanded universe. Star Wars fans knew what was considered canon and not canon, so this is among one of those things where if you were reading it, you knew not to take it too seriously. But still, it's impressive nonetheless. And again, more Star Wars Tales stuff. It is now just kind of leading into more, I guess, really headcanon kind of stuff, or just, I guess, just the cartoony, comedic kind of aspects of Star Wars. I mean, heck, you get these tales, you get some of the Sergio Argoniez storylines. That guy from the guy from Mad Magazine here. It's always nice to see a flip of Star Wars meets Mad Magazine. Anytime I think of this guy, I always think of Antonio Proyes, the guy who worked on Spy vs. Spy. But the humor's there. Like, you'll read it. If you're a Star Wars fan, you pick up on all the nuance. But now comes those Star Wars Infinity stories I mentioned earlier. And these are basically the Star Wars what-ifs. And each story is contained within its own self, meaning the events of one don't lead into the other. Like, for instance, in this story, Luke dies in the first few pages. He's dead. But in Return of the Jedi, he's alive and well, because they're both self-contained in that way. But still, the one thing I'll take away from both of these was one of my favorite moments ever, when Vader shows up on Dagobah and meets Yoda, and they have their conflict. I love the way they played this out, where Vader, he looks like the movie accurate version, and then when Yoda, I guess, does some sort of mind trick on him, within Vader's own mind, he now looks like the Ralph McQuarrie original design of Darth Vader. I love the fact that small detail. Even the additional detail of any time Vader comes up against an opponent who strikes him, more of his armor is chipped away, and he looks more and more like one of the Ralph McQuarrie designs, revealing himself. It's incredibly well done. Far better than it should have been. Some of this art is incredible, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, it's still a what-if story. So, I can understand you taking it or leaving it, however which way you will. But now, I guess my final thoughts. In all honesty, I would say this. This one, I could see people passing on. But if you were a fan of, what's it called? Shadows of the Empire, you definitely still should maybe take a gander at this book, or maybe even the Epic Collection. But in all honesty, like the way they nailed the Star Wars Tales stories, sandwiching them in between the important ones, I really do feel they nailed it with this book. They didn't have to include those Ralph McQuarrie artworks either, and I give them a lot of credit in that sense. But hey, that's just my 2 cents at the end of the day. Hopefully I'll read your 2 cents in the comments down below. And like always, hopefully y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.